The time has come to resume with the presentations. Next speaker will be introduced. Professor Hiroo Ichikawa, Professor Emeritus of the Meiji University, Professor of Teikyo University, and Executive Director of the Mori Memorial Foundation. He will be discussing the future of Tokyo. Ichikawa-san, please. Out of the 3 sessions, I'm in charge of the city. We have started in 2013, and this is the 10th anniversary of the ICF. So it went by very quickly. So I think it's very important to take stock of what you had understood, and also our direction going forward. This will be the theme of my presentation today. What we have been discussing is Tokyo and the surrounding area. We compared to Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, London, Paris, we have made a comparison with Tokyo. What is necessary when thinking about the future? Identity has become the focus. In that sense, it went by very quickly, but we have been beset with the era of the COVID-19, and through this we have accumulated experience. So I'd like to introduce what we have been doing for the past 9 years. Now, city is the vitality of the city center is the vitality of the city. Now, it's the center of the city that will decide the destiny. From Seoul, Cho-san, Mitchell-san participated. From Singapore, Liu Taikan-san participated in the forum. And for Tokyo, Mr. Tsuji Shingo discussed Tokyo. Furthermore, our rival, the 3 cities. One is London. Peter Bishop was in charge of London. And for New York, Vishan Chakrabarty-san took on the city. And from Paris, Mr. Domenico Perro came to participate. In particular, the urban development area management unique cases exist in the world. From London, Vicky Burdett-san participated to discuss this topic. From New York, public space practice, Tom Hanks-san came to speak. Journalist Michael Kinnan-san from New York Times discussed order. So various opinion leaders of the cities have participated so that we can discuss the future of Tokyo. The city's identity has become a focus. With Sharon Zukin, authentic city theme was discussed. A new example was introduced. David Barnard-san, global context. This perspective was introduced. Yoshimi Shingo-san discussed the cultural assets of Tokyo. Four sessions were introduced. Future living was one. Future work. Future mobility. future entertainment. And Tokyo 2035 was visualized. Various technologies will contribute to our lifestyle. This is the type of future that we envisioned. Furthermore, Saskia Satsen discussed the ranking of the cities. Richard Bender-san, Alan J. Scott, Peter Nikon, furthermore, the Tokyo's identity was discussed from various perspectives. Tokyo's history, Ito Takeshi-san discussed this point. Walking around Tokyo was discussed by Kuroda Ryo-san. Traditional design, Azuma Rie-san discussed this topic. Customer experience, David Atkinson. The younger generation also took part, Tamura Masaki-san. Obara Kazuhiro-san. Takashi Masami-san. So once in 100 years, a pandemic is what we have experienced for the city. Its impact was experienced firsthand. And it was an online meeting. Ben Rogers from London took part. From New York, Jonathan Bowles participated. From Japan, Muraki Miki-san participated. From Singapore, Lee Wen-hee-san. Whether the density is good or bad was discussed. Ishiyama Anju-san spoke about human relations. Toyota Keisuke-san. Rodriguez Post-san. Overseas participants said that even despite of the pandemic, cities are likely to flourish and thrive going forward. So, what is the future? It is on the same trajectory as the past. There will be new encounters, paradigm shift will occur to move to the next phase. We have been able to confirm this, which also seemed quite obvious. So let's review the past of Tokyo. After Meiji Restoration, from Edo, it changed to Tokyo. 1 million city changed. And with Meiji Restoration, after 2 decades and 3 decades, the population of Tokyo remained around 1 million, and that is how the urban environment was established in the surrounding areas. Inclusive thereof, the 3 prefectures and Tokyo became several millions in terms of population order. And in the Taisho era, there was a significant growth. But in 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake occurred. And the city structure of Tokyo was subject to undergo change. And after that, population continued to increase, and it toppled the 10 million mark in terms of population in 1945. There was the loss of Tokyo. 60% was lost. So through these vicissitudes, in the 1960s, the population approached the 20 million mark. The Metropolitan Expressway was constructed, Shinkansen was opened and started to operate. This was for the purpose of the Tokyo Games in 1964. There was a significant growth of Tokyo thereafter. Prior to bubble economy, it was close to 30 million prior to the bursting of the bubble economy, not just Tokyo, but also with the three prefectures surrounding Tokyo. And after the bubble economy or the great financial crisis, the Rainbow Bridge was established, which was toward symbolic of the future. There are high-rise buildings constructed because of the deregulation that is taking place in Tokyo. So it's also a symbol of the change in Tokyo. Various construction works are underway. Currently, there are about 36 million. It has become one of the largest cities of the world. And so this has been the history of Tokyo so far. Let's look at Japan overall. At the bubble economy days, or toward the end of the bubble economy, the population breakdown is shown here. You can see it in the city areas, so population has continued to increase, but it has been declining thereafter. Currently, it's growing only in limited areas. Tokyo and very limited other regions are seeing increase. People say that centralization in Tokyo is a problem. If that is the case, then what about London and Paris? They're in a similar situation. Now, against this backdrop, it is natural to have centralization of the cities. So we have to consider what is going to happen in the future. Going back in history, we can see that there was the oil shock, and the influx into the large cities will decrease with the oil shock and with Lehman shock. You can see that it has declined, but then it has recovered thereafter. Population has declined. What is going to happen in the future is the issue. The future is on the same trajectory as the past. That means that it is likely to revert back to where we were in the past. In 2021, in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, there were some people who went to the outlying areas, but in fact the outflow was Saitama, Kanagawa, and Chiba. That was the limit of the outflow from Tokyo. Where did that go? We also have information based on 2020. It is within the 30-kilometer radius, a 1 hour radius, not 40 kilometers from Tokyo. So people think there was a mobility, but there was only movement within Tokyo and the greater Tokyo area. In the greater Tokyo area, the urban structure has not changed. And what about the current state? From June of 2022, population has been increasing compared to 2020. Prior to the COVID pandemic, we have reverted back to this level. So what is going to happen in the future, according to common sense? It is likely to exceed the level of 2020. So COVID and people will coexist, and there is likely to be a reversion back to the large city. In July of this year, out of the 23 wards, in 15 wards out of 23, the population has been increasing. Outflow has declined. In 2 years of the pandemic, there was some outflow, but it has now stopped, and now it is reverting back to where we were before. So this is what we're experiencing today. And with ICF, over the 9 years, what have we learned? This is what I'd like to address.
So one is that the pandemics becoming a daily occurrence is a historical necessity for the existence of cities. We have come to realize this once again. If you look at history, it's a repeat of pandemics. Starting from the past, we have COVID, but they were pandemics in different intervals. It's just that we did not have it in the last 100 years. So we need to continue to live together with the pandemic. So what can we do as a megacity? That can be established by agglomeration. So if you have strong urban power and valuable density, then you can actually establish a megacity. And traditional resources, this will strengthen a city's identity in a global context. I think we have learned that as well. Furthermore, having collaboration with others with diverse values will lead to the sustainability of society. Again, this is something that we had discussed. Moreover, the return to the city center will create the next relation between the authentic city center and suburbs. So what sort of relationship can we build? So 100 years ago, that awareness, what would happen to that? I think that's being questioned. Another point is the bringing new value to the urban space through the fusion of real space and virtual space. We really feel that. And Internet of Things and digital transformation create new lifestyles and activities for people. There's no doubt about that. So these are the things that we have come up with, that we have learned, and this is the picture of Tokyo in the future. And my challenge is, what do we need to do with the central Tokyo? So future of Tokyo. In 2035, this is the picture of Tokyo. What do we envisage then? Future living, future work, future mobility, future entertainment, and built environment. We will have worked to build an image of urban space, Tokyo, with these aspects. So we have drone flying. What would change? So the airspace has opened up, and we see drone, and we will see expansion of airspaces, or we see greening of the city, infrastructure building. Future work, it's not just about remote work or working from home. There will be different types of work styles. And we will have robots, and we have biometric authentication, which will support the work and activities of people. And where people live, we need to live. That will not change. But there will be different technologies that will be adopted in here. The greatest reason is because, is it fun for people? Is it for happiness of people? So people will use technology, but how can that make people happier? I think that's the challenge that we have to look at. And urban development itself is becoming, or is increasing in value in different dimensions. And I believe that this will change how we operate the city in the future. And the areas that have been eroded because of the past developments will now be transformed. So this is the old river. Now this will be transformed. And what about virtual currency? What about robot and biometrics? And all the work can be done on a virtual basis. So here's a designer starting back, but doesn't need to basically do anything on a drawing basis. You can do this in space, in virtual space. What about entertainment? Hologram. How much can you use that? I think there's many potential possibilities. And on the backdrop is we have unmanned buses, taxis, drones, robots. There are many of these things will be realized in the next 10 years and will become one of the major protagonists of the future urban space. Actually, Tokyo 2035, when we developed this vision, what did these girls say? What would happen to Tokyo? The conversation between these girls, it's sophisticated, but it's slightly punky. What it will be saying is that Tokyo today is very sophisticated, but it's not very punky. There's nothing that really stands out, that strikes out. So what she's saying is that it's really pointing to issues, challenges that Tokyo faces. So comprehensive capability of Tokyo as a city, we need to continue to grow that. But what about this identity that really stands out. I mean, this is something that we have been focusing on the last decade, but we're still in a trial and terror state. So why is it that many tourists look at Tokyo? Why do we have so much inbound tourists? And why is it that Tokyo is one of the most invested places in terms of real estate? And the answer is not simple. But what about this identity that tells us this is Tokyo? I think defining that identity is the homework that we have for those of us who need to develop the future of Tokyo. So these, girls are, dialing, and because we develop these characters, of course, this is what we think. But what does it mean to become a city that's punky, that stands out? And what we need to target is the power of central Tokyo. We have always thought that it's the central part of Tokyo that's powerful, and that will not remain unchanged. Why is it that we focus so much on central Tokyo? There's different discussions about this over this, but Tokyo has really worked hard, and we know that it's the power of the central Tokyo that's really contributing to how much Tokyo has made an effort. And the power of central city is basically the same in any part of the world. They have that strength of the company, and as a result, encourages people to love that country. And that is why we need to focus on the power of central city. So when we are asked that question about what about the power of central city, we have from 2008 been looking at the rankings of the cities. In 2018, we have tried to assess the Japan power cities. So this is central Metro Tokyo. So what about each of the different districts of Tokyo, their power? You can assess the power of the cities from different degrees, but we have looked at 86 indexes in 6 areas, from living space to transportation. And I think we need to explain what that is. What really stands in the middle, the pink, is Chiyoda, Chuo, and Minato wards. These are the central wards of Tokyo. And around it, we have Shinjuku, Shibuya. So most of the central cities is where the power is. And of course, these single wards of 23 wards has maybe 2 or 3 times power of other wards and other suburbs cities as well. Of course, we know that there's a lot of power in the suburbs as well, but this has not really been talked about much. But if I was to present this is how it would look. So megacity Tokyo, why does it exist? Of course, there are different elements. But the greatest theme is that there's outstanding strength and power in the central Tokyo and central city. So what do we do with that? So if you were to speak about the future of Tokyo 20, 30 years later, there's different aspects. But how can we even increase the power of Tokyo and the city that has this power? So this is reflected in different attempts for urban development and improving lifestyles and inbound tourists. What can we do to delight the inbound tourists? When we think about those things, we need to continue to leverage the power of the city. This is not just for the ego, but this is for Japan, for Tokyo, and for the world. And our rival cities, what about London? What about New York? What about Paris? What about other Asian emerging cities like Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, and Seoul as well? As we compete, we build cities. And I think that's what the future city is about. We don't evolve alone. We have different trials and errors. We test out what's good, and we are working to get empathies from different peers. And we build the cities along within this competition. So there's a lot of commonalities. So that's why we need to focus on the power of the cities. we call center core. This is the 10 wards of Tokyo, and the 5, especially that stands out in the middle, maybe 8 wards. So this is part of the vision that we have developed, but this is one of the most attractive and maybe what's unique in the world. We need to come up with that for these central wards of Tokyo. And I think this will build the future of Tokyo. This is the 10th year. And if you asked us, what do we understand from ICF? We have talked about future, and this is what we have discovered. Many of these are common sense. But now with this common understanding, a common sense, we will build the future. So there are many attractive developments that are taking place in Tokyo. And I think we have come to the timing where we need to think about what our next stage is based on these attractive developments we have done. Thank you very much. It's Professor Ichikawa.
ありがとうございました。